She married the coldest and most arrogant millionaire, but she never imagined that behind his icy exterior lay a heart scarred by battles no one else could see. From the very first moment Isabella stood in the grand hall of Ethan Knight's mansion, she knew she had stepped into a life that wasn't hers. The marble floors, the towering chandeliers, and the silence that clung to the air, it all screamed wealth, but not warmth. Her heart trembled, not from awe, but from the suffocating chill that seemed to come from the man she had just sworn vows with. Ethan Knight was known across the city as a ruthless businessman. He was the type of man who could silence a room simply by walking into it, his cold blue eyes scanning people as though they were nothing more than figures on a balance sheet. And now, that same man was her husband. Theirs was not a marriage of love, but of necessity. Isabella's father had fallen deep into debt after his business collapsed, and Ethan had stepped in not out of kindness, but as a deal. He would save her father's company from bankruptcy, but in return, Isabella would become his wife. She was a sacrifice dressed in white satin. At first, she hated him. He barely spoke to her, and when he did, it was sharp and condescending. The mansion felt more like a prison than a home, its endless corridors echoing with loneliness. He had his own wing of the house, and she slept alone most nights, listening to the wind howl through the enormous windows. But what truly stung her heart wasn't his silence. It was the fact that even when he looked at her, he seemed to see nothing. She was invisible. And yet, things were not what they seemed. One rainy evening, unable to sleep, Isabella wandered through the darkened halls until she came across Ethan's study. The door was ajar, and she saw him sitting at his desk, his hands trembling as he stared at an old photograph. His face, usually so controlled and impassive, was broken, lined with pain. It was the first time she realized Ethan Knight was not heartless, he was haunted. Over the following weeks, Isabella began to notice small things. He would sometimes sit alone in the garden, staring at the stars for hours. He flinched at the sound of thunder. He kept a locked drawer in his study that he guarded fiercely. Slowly, curiosity tugged at her until she gathered the courage to ask. At first, he lashed out. "Stay out of my life, Isabella. You got what you wanted: comfort, security. Don't dig where you don't belong." His words cut her, but behind his anger, she sensed fear. It wasn't until one night, when he woke screaming from a nightmare, that his walls began to crack. His voice was raw, begging someone not to leave him. She rushed to his side, and for the first time, he didn't push her away. Instead, he buried his face in his hands, unable to hold back the truth anymore. Years ago, Ethan had been engaged to a woman named Clara. She was his world, the only one who had ever seen beyond his arrogance, but during a storm, she was killed in a car accident. Ethan had been driving. Though the accident wasn't his fault, he had never forgiven himself. He built his empire as a shield, burying his grief under layers of money and power. The arrogance, the coldness, it was all armor. Hearing this, Isabella's heart softened. For the first time, she saw not a millionaire who had bought her, but a man desperately clinging to the ruins of his past. From that night on, Isabella made a choice. She would not run. She would not let his walls push her away. She would fight for the man buried beneath the ice. It wasn't easy. Ethan resisted, retreating into himself whenever she tried to show kindness. He accused her of pitying him, of trying to fix what was broken beyond repair. But Isabella's love wasn't pity. It was patience. She started with small things, leaving a light on in the hallway during storms, cooking meals even though the mansion had chefs, inviting him to sit with her by the fireplace in silence. Slowly, almost unwillingly, Ethan began to change. One evening, when she was reading on the sofa, he sat beside her, not across the room, not behind a desk, but beside her. He didn't speak, but he reached for her hand. His fingers trembled, but he didn't let go. For Isabella, it was enough. Months passed, and the man once called the coldest millionaire began to thaw. He laughed awkwardly at first, then with genuine warmth. He accompanied her to visit her father, ensuring the man's health and business were cared for. He began joining her for dinners, telling her about his work, asking her about her day. The mansion, once a prison, became a home filled with soft light, music, and the sound of two people learning to love. And then one spring morning, as they stood in the garden among blooming roses, Ethan whispered the words Isabella thought she'd never hear: "I don't deserve you. But I need you. Stay with me, not because of a deal, not because of duty, but because I love you." Tears blurred her vision as she wrapped her arms around him. "You don't have to deserve me, Ethan. You just have to let me love you." For the first time in years, Ethan Knight's heart was free. The world still called him arrogant, but Isabella knew better. Behind the ice was a man who had been broken and she had helped him heal. Their story was not perfect. They still had fights, he still had scars, and there were nights when the old ghosts tried to return. But together, they faced them. Together, they chose love over fear, warmth over coldness. And in that choice, Isabella discovered the greatest truth of all: sometimes the coldest hearts are the ones that burn the brightest once touched by love.